Hello and welcome to the first Amelie Maran Podcast episode, where we're going to talk all things travel, moving abroad, and a bit of girl chat too. I've got my tea here, I'm feeling chill, I'm in some comfy clothes, and let's get into it. Do you know what would be so funny is if I actually spill this tea all down myself. Okay, I'm going to put my tea here. I don't know how safe that ledge is, so we'll see. First, I want to talk about why I want to do this podcast and the reasoning behind it and what I hope to achieve with it. I've just spent the past 5 months traveling Latin America with my boyfriend, and we saw so many people talking on TikTok, giving recommendations of what to do, what not to do, and we had so many amazing experiences that I think would be so nice to share. And eventually I'd really like to have people come on and tell us their stories and just talk about places they've been to. Because, for example, I have a lot of friends that have traveled to Asia, but I've never been to Asia and don't know much about it. And I just think it'd be really nice to create a space where everybody can share their travel stories. And let's be honest, not everything goes perfectly right when you go traveling, so I think it would be quite funny as well. I also really want to help anybody who's either thought of or is about to move to Australia from the UK especially. I feel like it's really romanticized at home, and I think a lot of I want to say hardships, but it's not like brutal, but I just think there are a lot of things people don't talk about, a lot of factors that can make it really difficult moving here, and it's not all sunshine rainbows. It's normal, it's life, it's reality, and I just want to kind of relay that to people and show them the realities of moving to a different country, and one that I know in the UK is very popular. To bring you up to speed, we landed in Australia on the 4th of July, and we came from Santiago, Chile. We flew the whole 15-hour flight, which was a very long flight. I wouldn't actually say it was really bad, but it is a very long flight. Your feet are going to swell like never before. I've never experienced such a long haul flight, so that was pretty interesting. But we were quite lucky, actually. We were sitting at the very front of economy, so we had no one reclining onto us. We could stretch out our legs. It was quite ideal, actually. But we landed in Australia and we stayed in a hotel for the first 10 days, which was so ideal because the jet lag is unreal. And I think people say the jet lag's bad coming from the UK anyway. It's a 9-hour difference where we are. We're in Melbourne right now. And I think 15-hour time difference just knocked us. I started waking up at 1 a.m. in the first few days. And when I say waking up, I mean as though I'd been really well rested and I could have gone to work. I could have gone for a run. I genuinely was so awake at 1 a.m., which was very strange. And I could not get back to sleep for those first 2 days. So I was just watching endless films. I was watching Friends. They don't have Friends on Latin American Netflix, so I was catching up. I was rewatching the series, and I essentially just spent a lot of my time watching stuff and watching TikTok. But after those 10 days, we have moved into a flat, which is where I'm recording this, and we're going to be here for a few months. The process to find a flat was, I would say it's stressful when you're looking, but it's not an actually stressful process. When you're in the thick of it and you don't know if you're going to find a flat, I would say that's when it's quite stressful and quite worrying. But when you start speaking to people and contacting people who are either subletting or estate agents, you realise it's actually a lot easier. We contacted this girl through Flatmate Finder, and she has sublet the rest of her contract to us. Looking on Facebook as well and becoming part of loads of Facebook groups is really helpful, I would say, if anyone's obviously looking to move here. And I know it's the same for Sydney and Perth. You can use Facebook, you can use Flatmate Finder. So that's something I would definitely recommend. Since moving in, we've actually just been doing a lot of job hunting and just trying to find some sort of routine to get into. I feel like when you're unemployed, your routine goes out the window and you start sleeping in, you want to go to bed late. And whilst that's okay, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I think we've moved here with the intention of getting a job and getting into that routine, making money to fund trips that we want to do around Australia, but also our ticket home. So we're just trying to find that routine and that balance, making sure we go out for walks and we're not just sitting in the flat all day. And they've got Aldi here, which is great. So we do a lot of trips to Aldi just to get some food and things. But honestly, most of our day is sat job hunting, emailing people, contacting people, networking where we can. And obviously I'm sitting doing this podcast. So we're keeping busy. It's never dull, I would say. A few weeks ago, I put a poll on my Instagram asking you guys if you had any questions about travel or moving abroad, moving to Australia, and I thought I'd answer some of them for you guys. The first question is, what was your favourite country? I think my favourite country was Colombia because it had such a variety of things to do, so many different experiences, and it was heavily recommended to us by a lot of people. Even before we left, people we knew that had travelled Latin America, they were all recommending we stay as long as we can in Colombia, which I think at first when you hear Colombia, you think unsafe. I don't know how I want to do that. I don't think it's going to work for me, but it was honestly the best country we've been to. We have a friend who lives in Venezuela, which is the neighbouring country, and so she was going to come out and meet us in Colombia, which actually was really lovely. And then we ended up going to visit her in Venezuela, which wasn't something we'd planned to do. But Colombia was just great it's got a nice vibe. Like when you arrive, the music and the colours, and it's just such a colourful country. There's just so many things to do there. We landed in Cartagena and we did the Caribbean coast first, which was beautiful. I think it had some of the best sunsets we've seen. And then we went down to the capital, and going along the coffee axis I think was my favourite part, because we did this coffee tour where we learnt all about coffee, the whole process of how you make coffee from the plant. You do it yourself and then you get to drink the coffee that you've picked afterwards. And it was so interesting, especially learning about the coffee industry and how much bad product there is out there. It was quite eye-opening, I think, as well. And then obviously you've got Medellin, where if you've watched Narcos on Netflix, it's quite cool to see, you know, where they filmed and learn the history behind all of that. So I 100% would have to say Colombia. What was your worst experience? I don't think this was our worst experience, but it could have been, and it wasn't that enjoyable at the time. We can laugh about it now, but it wasn't funny at the time. And it was when we were flying from Panama to Colombia. We had originally flown from Costa Rica to Panama, just to take you back a step. We flew from Costa Rica to Panama, and when we arrived at the desk in Costa Rica to check in and get our boarding passes and everything, the woman asked us if we had a flight out of Panama. And so we did. We booked our flight from Panama to Colombia before we'd even got to Panama, made it a lot cheaper. And we gave her the details. We handed our phones to her and said, yeah, this is our flight, blah, blah, blah. But I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that that was a really strange question to ask us. I've never been asked that before, especially in Europe. It's not something I'd heard of. And so I did some research whilst we were in Panama, and it said some countries require you to have a flight leaving the country before you've entered. But we thought, no, we should be okay. I mean, we have a flight booked to Australia from Chile in, I think at that time it was 3 months away. So we thought, no, we should be all right. And obviously they'll look at our passport and they'll see that we've been traveling through countries. We have no intention of staying in Colombia. So I'm slightly panicking because I'm thinking, okay, if they don't accept that, then what do we do? So we get to the desk when we're flying from Panama to Colombia. And obviously, of course, they had to ask us, do you have a flight leaving Colombia? And we said no, because we don't know when we're leaving Colombia. We're not trying to overstay our welcome in Colombia, but we just don't know when we're going to leave. The person at the desk says, well, that's not good enough. You need to buy a flight. And bearing in mind the flights at that time, when you buy them there and they're not pre-booked, are like £200, maybe more, because we were flying from Medellin to Lima in Peru. And I'm standing there quite stressed out. I'm looking at Sam going, what are we going to do? They're not going to let us on the flight. We're going to have to buy a new flight. This is taking quite a big chunk out of the budget. What do we do? And then I look over to my right and there is a girl sobbing, because she's trying to get on the same flight as us, but she hasn't got the funds to pay for the flight out of Colombia, so they won't let her on the plane, and she's trying to argue with them and it's just not happening. And so I turn to Sam and say, what are we going to do? I don't know how we get out of this situation. It doesn't look like they're going to let us on the flight. So Sam quickly goes onto this random website. I honestly don't know what website it was, and he books a bus out of Colombia, saying we're going to go to Venezuela, because at that point we'd decided we're going to go to Venezuela and see our friend. So whilst that was true, it wasn't an actual bus ticket, and they kept saying you need a flight. I don't care if you have a bus, you need a flight. We said, okay, but we have a bus. If you put this booking number into your system, it should all be okay, and it shows we're leaving the country. Cool, done. They are arguing back and forth with us. They will not let us on this flight. And so the manager then comes over and the guy says, okay, so what do I do about these two? So the manager comes over and she says, I'm actually going to have to flag you guys and call Colombian Immigration on you, so that when you get to the immigration after you've crossed into Colombia, they can check and they are the ones that will interrogate you. And they have to say that it's okay for you to enter the country. As soon as I heard Colombian Immigration, I was unsettled. I was not okay. I was so stressed. I just, that's not something you want to mess with. That's not something you want to try and cheat through. So I'm thinking, no, we can't do that. Okay, what do we do? I'm thinking we'll do it differently. We'll have to book a different flight. We'll leave on a different day. It doesn't matter. Sam is obviously a completely different place, saying, no, we are getting on this flight. Yep, that's cool, flag us, who cares? He's being a bit more chill about it. I was not very chill about it. So we go through the flight. I'm stressing that whole flight and thinking, okay, they're gonna turn us away. They're gonna say no because we don't have a flight out of Colombia. What do we do? They flagged us. They know exactly who we are. And of course, the immigration line after the plane had to be the longest queue I think we've ever been in. I think we were waiting in immigration for 2 hours. So that was 2 hours of me stressing and annoying Sam of just, what are we going to do? Okay, if they deport us, they deport us. You know, trying to shrug it off. We get up to the desk for the Colombian Immigration. This woman does not care. She has no clue who we are. She has no clue what we're talking about. And she just stamps our passports and lets us through. And we think, what? Oh my gosh, I've been stressing this whole time and nothing happened. So when we left the airport, we start researching the airline because we think, okay, it must have been something to do with the airline. Turns out that their policy, because they're such cheap flights, is that you have to buy a flight out of the country before you enter the country in case you overstay your welcome and they have to deport you. They don't want to pay for that. So they make you buy the flight to cover themselves. If they had just told us that, this could have been very different and I would not have been stressing the entire time. But anyway, it turned out that we didn't need to stress. Well, I didn't need to stress and there was no issue and we had the best time in Colombia. But that definitely could have turned into one of the most stressful, worst experiences. Are you scared of the wildlife in Australia? I haven't actually seen any scary wildlife since being here, touch wood, but I know that if you get into the more remote areas and the areas out of the city, there's definitely going to be wildlife like spiders and snakes and things, but I'm kind of excited to see that stuff. I mean, I think because you hear about it so much, especially in the UK, just see what it's like. I don't know. I'm not really too worried because I think we're going to be spending a lot of time in cities and that's not where the wildlife is, so I don't know, but I will keep you updated if I see any wildlife. I would really like to see kangaroos. I think that would be really cool. Maybe not get too close. I hear they're quite aggressive, but I would like to see a kangaroo. Favourite and least favourite meal you've tried? My favourite meal was in Costa Rica, and it was this dish called pinto gallo, and it was rice, beans, avocado, cheese, and I think that was all of it. But it was the best meal. I went into a food coma after eating it. It was so good, and it was really sweet. We were staying with some friends in Costa Rica, and their neighbours invited us all over for breakfast, for like a brunch. And so when we went over, they're cooking this rice and beans, and they had specifically cooked a traditional Costa Rican dish for us to try, and it was the best. I would say maybe that was the best in Central America. And then South America, in South America, my favourite meal would probably have to be the steak in Argentina, 100%. I had my birthday in May, and we were at Iguazu Falls for my birthday, the top of Argentina, and we had the best steak I think I've ever had in my life. And it wasn't massively expensive. We were kind of comparing the prices of steak in the UK to Argentina, and the steak was so much nicer in Argentina. It was so much cheaper. I mean, I know obviously they make the best steak, but was so good, and I could have that every day. It was so nice. Then for the worst meal that I had, I didn't actually eat it, but when we were in Peru, we did the Machu Picchu hike. We went to this restaurant with our entire group afterwards, when we'd finished the entire hike, and we all went out for lunch. And in Peru, their specialty dish is guinea pig. We didn't really know that, and so we went to this restaurant for lunch. Suddenly the chef brings out to the table, because somebody had ordered it in our group, he brings over to the table this guinea pig that they roast it on its four legs. It looks like it could be alive, but it's just been roasted, if that makes sense. And everybody's looking up, everybody's going, what is that? What is going on? And the chef at the table, in front of everybody, starts snapping off the guinea pig's neck, his arms, its legs, so that you can have the meat. So the way they prepare it is, guinea pigs have loads of small bones, and so you need to snap everything to create what kind of looked like chicken wings, is the only way I could kind of describe it. But I completely lost my appetite. I was just looking at it like, this is too strange. I have friends that have guinea pigs and friends that have had guinea pigs for a very long time as pets. So to see it in that form was quite disturbing. So I can't say I tried it, but I don't think it's something I'm going to try anytime soon. The next question is, how far in advance were we planning for? I feel like I tried to constantly plan the trip, and I was constantly trying to kind of control freak my way through the trip at the beginning or just before we left, because I didn't understand what it was going to be like, and I had no clue. I've never been traveling before this, so I think I was just trying to make myself feel better by trying to plan. But something like Central America, you you don't need to plan, because the continent in itself is essentially a straight line. And so everybody's either traveling from Mexico to Panama or Panama to Mexico, and there's not too much leeway. Both sides of the sea. But I would say for South America, we did not plan at all. We didn't plan anything. We would kind of get into the routine of staying somewhere for maybe 3 to 5 days, and then the night before we leave, just finding something on TikTok or doing some research. My parents also have traveled Latin America, so asking them where did they go, what do they recommend, and we just sort of got into that kind of routine. I think also by that point we've been traveling for a month or two, and we understood how traveling works in a way, and if you over plan it, it's not going to be enjoyable, and you're going to constantly be thinking about the next bus you have to catch or the next hostel you need to stay at, and it just isn't that fun. But obviously if you want to plan your trip and that's something that's going to make you feel a lot better, I would say just do as much research as possible. Just go on some websites, some blog posts. TikTok was also a lifesaver for us. It was holy grail if we had no clue what to do in an area. So just do your research. I did this thing just so I could sort of see the route we could do. I did it on Google Maps, where I just favorited areas that blogs had said was really good. I then had this map on Google that sort of showed a route, and we did not stick to that route at all. But before leaving, it made me feel a bit better, because it was very daunting going from Mexico to Chile. And when you're in Mexico and you think, we've got 5 months to get to the bottom of this continent, it was something that made me feel better, that if all else fails, we've got this route and we can stick to that. Okay, and the last question is, what size bag did I take? I took the 60 litre, 20 litre twin pack from Mountain Warehouse. It was the best purchase I have ever made. It was the best bag I could have taken. We knew we were going for a long time. We knew that after 5 months we were going to be living for a year. And obviously Australia is somewhere you can buy clothes, so I didn't really pack too much for Australia, or for the Australian part of the trip. But we were also going to be going through 2 different seasons in the 5 months that we were traveling Latin America. We were starting off in the heat in Central America, and then we went to the very bottom of Argentina, which is snow and very, very cold. The 60 litre I couldn't get as a carry-on. I think if I hadn't packed it as much towards the end of the trip, when we started taking more flights consistently, I think if I'd not packed it fully, I could have gotten away with it and just kind of squashed it down. But I did check it every time we took a flight, just because it was easier. It also got really heavy towards the end after buying presents for people and collecting things from different countries, so it was just easier to check it. But I will definitely talk more about packing and packing essentials in the next episode. I really want to take you guys through what I packed and how important some things were and some things weren't that I packed. There were definitely things that I did not need to pack that I packed and actually carried the entire time. I've still got it with me. But I'd also really like it if you guys could share your packing tips and your packing essentials when you go traveling, because I think it's so different for different continents and different countries. It'd be really interesting to share what everybody likes and takes as an essential when they go traveling. Okay, well that is the end of the first episode of the Amelie Maran podcast. I hope you've enjoyed. I really enjoyed talking about our travels, and I'm really looking forward to doing more episodes. I cannot wait to show you guys what I've got coming up, and I cannot wait to hear what you guys have to say about your travels. Any funny stories are welcome. Please just message me on social media, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Thank you for listening to the Amelie Maran podcast.